From the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, it's P.I.D. Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and boy, we are scouring the news from our back bedroom.
And there is so much to talk about this week. As always, we invite you to download our app before we dive into the
gotta download that app. There's so much on there.
Yeah, I've tweaked it a little bit this week, so it's a little easier to find the programs that are updated constantly at the top of the app. But as you go into the body of the app, the calendar section's been updated. So now our weekly Bible reading schedule for the Gilbert House Fellowship and a calendar of our upcoming events, both now available under the calendar tab. Yeah.
You're getting there.
Took me more than a year to figure that out.
Your skill set is just incredible.
My kung fu is getting good.
And let me just say this morning in particular, you are bright-eyed and just ready to go because Kevlar Joe.
Oh, yes.
Started out your morning.
Thanks to Nick and Crystal at Kevlar Joe's Coffee in Herculaneum, Missouri, that's south of St. Louis, sent us a wonderful gift basket full of coffees, including the custom Bigfoot blend that they produce for Chris and Tori over at the Camp Herman podcast.
We're going to try that tomorrow morning. Now, This morning we went with Morning Joe.
Kind of ease in. Morning Joe's kind of a milder blend. Mm-hmm. But boy, that Bigfoot blend, Sumatran beans.
I know. Look, Derek and I love Sumatran beans, so we were so excited to see that that's what that consists of. So thank you. They also sent a mug.
Yeah.
Got only one.
Right here. You just look closely into your monitor. You can imagine me holding.
We're going to have to go and get another one because, we like to drink out of matching mugs in the mornings.
It's a great logo, though. That very famous meme poster of the soldier, cheerful soldier holding a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the island. Yeah. So thank you again, Nick, Crystal, Chris, Tori. We really, really appreciate it.
We really do. Yep. Thank you for that. Oh, and by the way, if you don't listen to Blurry Creatures, why don't you?
Yeah. Blurry Creatures, Camp Herman. So many great podcasts out there. And I think they all know Kevlar Joe. Yes,
we're late to the table.
We are.
Party.
We are. So, but it's because we've been doing this for so long. It's we kind of, at least I do, kind of get set into a routine, and it's like need to start looking outside that box.
No, that's scary outside the box. Well, outside the box thinking, we've got all sorts of things going on in the world. Not to mention the fact that Putin is mad.
Big mad. He is big mad. Yeah, Yevgheny Prigozhin, who was nicknamed Putin's chef.
Because he actually ran a catering company.
Right.
But chef is also French for chief.
And he branched out into the world of mercenary soldiering with the Wagner Group.
Yep.
That's a name that has been coming up more frequently in recent years, as Wagner has been used by Russia kind of the way the old Blackwater. Yeah, I was thinking BlackRock. No, that's the investment. Blackstone. No, that's another investment group. Yeah, Blackwater, which is now Academy.
Or something else. I don't know. It was a G for a while.
Used by the United States government to enact U.S. foreign policy with plausible deniability. It's not us. It's same thing with Wagner. We don't have
boots on the ground.
Yeah. Same thing with Wagner Group being in Sudan and the issue taking place. Was it Sudan or Somalia where they had the recent...
I think it's Sudan. You're talking about the whole gold mine thing?
Yeah. Where you've got the...
it's there on the Horn of Africa. I think it's Sudan because they've got
Sudan.
A port.
That's correct. Right. And Wagner Group had been working with...
the local politician.
Yeah, one of the groups fighting for control of that country.
One of the coups.
Yeah, to help themselves to gold being mined in Sudan. Had taken out like tens of millions of dollars worth of gold.
And if the local, if the current leader decided, we don't like that very much, I'm going to stop you from taking gold, then there was just another coup.
So that has kind of dropped out of the news, that fight there.
Yeah, but you and I keep an eye on those things.
We do. But Wagner was playing a role in that conflict. Wagner was also used in Syria. There was a story a couple of years ago where a contingent of U.S. Marines took out 20 some odd Wagner mercenaries, and the Russians are like, nah, it wasn't our soldiers. So again, plausible deniability. They're doing what the Kremlin wanted, but without the Kremlin saying, no, it's not our guys.
Right. And they've been in Ukraine.
They were instrumental in taking the city of Bakhmut, where fighting continued for months, a really bloody, awful battle in eastern Ukraine for a city that really wasn't all that strategically important. Why the Ukrainians were digging in and just throwing men into that meat grinder, I don't know. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the strategy employed by Ukraine here in just a minute. But as of this recording, and this is a fast-moving story, so by the time you hear this, this could be a lot different. But as of 9 a.m. Saturday, June 24th of 2023, Russian military helicopters had reportedly fired on a convoy of Wagner troops heading from Rostov-on-Don, which is a city of about 1 million people very close to the Ukrainian border, from which Russia's military operations in Ukraine have been controlled. So the Wagner Group took the Russian military headquarters in Rostov and now are about, according to this report is from the Washington Free Beacon, they have made it to the city of Voronezh, which is about halfway between Rostov and Moscow. Now, that's a 680-mile journey along that highway. So they've managed to cover about 350 miles since taking the Russian military headquarters in Rostov. So a Russian military helicopters firing on the Wagner mercenaries that are advancing towards Moscow.
Yes. 25,000 militia members of Wagner.
Vladimir Putin addressed the nation at 9 a.m. local time Friday, or maybe it was Russia time. And he does not look happy in the video.
Not at all. In fact, he called Prigozhin a traitor.
Yeah. Basically used the word stab in the back. It will be interesting to see what's going on here, but there's been evidence of tension between Prigozhin and the Kremlin for a while. He's flat out called the head of the armed services there, Sergei Shoigu, a traitor, and complained that his men who were fighting the Battle of Bakhmut were being deprived of ammunition they needed by the regular army.
In the meantime, on the Wagner Telegram channel today, this is what was put there. Putin made the wrong choice. All the worse for him. Soon we will have a new president.
Oh.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Also, some of there was an oil depot that went up thinking that was where the Wagner troops were fueling, and supply depot also went up. So there is infighting. Now, this reminds me of the late 19th, early 20th century when you saw the White Russians and Red Russians begin to form up because Russia had been involved, under the Tsar, had been involved in a war with Japan, which failed. And then they were starting a war with Germany, which was failing, and ended up in World War I, which failed as far as Russia was concerned, because they were losing tens of thousands, perhaps even hundreds of thousands of troops who were mainly serfs. They were not at all happy about being thrown into a meat grinder. So you had soldiers who suddenly decided, as they whispered through and learned that there were rebellions taking place against the Tsar, and that had been building for a couple of decades, this hatred towards the Tsar. These soldiers started shooting their commanding officers and deserting, forming up with men like Lenin. So this was the beginning of what culminated in the 1917 Russian Revolution. I think we're seeing a replay of that.
You might be right. A lot of the guys in the Wagner Group, the mercenaries themselves, are convicts who were let go on the condition that they went to fight with Prigozhin's group.
And these convicts, once they serve out their quote-unquote term, they're loosed into the public.
Right. They may be seeing in Prigozhin an opportunity to do more of what they were doing before that got them sent to prison.
Continue their wicked ways.
Yeah. So this is really, really interesting. No doubt the rest of the world is watching this very, very closely.
By the way, Medvedev is rumored to have left Moscow. There are those who are saying, no, he's still here. He's head of the security services.
Security Council.
Yeah, Security Council, thank you. And Medvedev, if that name is familiar, he's in the past been a president, and then he was prime minister, and then he was flipped around. And
he was a placeholder for a while, during which time Putin served as prime minister, and then the constitution got changed so Putin could come back in as president.
Exactly.
This is occurring as Ukraine has launched its much ballyhooed, long-awaited counteroffensive, which to date has not been very successful. So what does this mean now for Ukraine's ability to retake territory in the Donbass? We don't know yet.
Well,
because, again, this is very fluid. By the time this podcast is over, this information
may well be
obsolete.
According to the map that I'm looking at, it is assumed, based on movements that were detected, and of course our Western sources have been watching all of this, and who knows what other involvement they may have with it, conspiracy theorist. It looks like the Wagner fighters may be trying to take control of Voronezh.
Which is that city mentioned earlier, about halfway between.
Right. So if they can take that, that is a holding ground for launching attacks against Moscow. So I think we are definitely seeing a coup.
Yeah, 25,000 against the Russian military. Now, Russia had as many as 80,000 soldiers poised on the border with Ukraine, so they've got more men they can throw at it.
Yes, but the word is they're poorly trained, and frankly, if they decide, you know what, it looks like Putin's going to lose, we're just going to go with the strong guy.
Yes. And the other factor here, and I want to come back to Ukraine's counteroffensive, which has not really been much in the news this week, although there was another story that dominated the news cycle.
So-called counteroffensive, really, yeah. This is also happening at a time when the two leading nations of the Western coalition, the United States and the United Kingdom, are being led by men who, quite frankly, are not the strongest leaders we've ever had in either nation. We don't have a Churchill or a Reagan or at the helm. Right.
Yeah. Joe Biden, I'm sorry, he is not the guy you want taking the phone call at 3 a.m. because Joe, and I don't say this with any joy, I'm not trying to mock the man, because we see up close with some family members what cognitive decline can do to someone.
Exactly.
But God bless him. They should have let him retire instead of putting him up as a meat suit to enact the policies of the handlers behind the scenes.
Yeah, that is tragedy.
But Rishi Sunak is a good behind the scenes schemer, but I don't think he is a leader.
Oh heavens, no. He's a follower.
He is.
So he does as he's told.
Yeah. So that's who's sitting on the other side of this, watching things. The danger might be that some Ivy League graduate inside the White House might say, now's our chance to really strike a blow against, and then plunge us full on into World War III, which is, you've been saying for years, ever since.
I've been watching the repeat of the lead up to World War I.
Which gets back to your point.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a series of what looks to people who have a naturalistic worldview, a series of human errors, when instead we need to remember, behind the scenes, we're not wrestling against human opponents, but principalities and powers and cosmic rulers.
Exactly.
Over this
Psalm
present
2,
darkness.
just remember that. But there's another thing taking place that echoes the lead up to World War I, and that is within the NATO alliance, there's another sub-alliance that's forming. It's the Nordic alliance, and Sweden is part of that. Sweden is not yet in NATO because Turkey is holding back its, essentially consent. Erdogan likes to be the last one to make the decision. Well, I'm the deal guy.
When they set up NATO, I guess they thought it was a good idea to make sure that if we're going to be connected through interlocking mutual defense agreements, we better make sure it's a unanimous vote. And Erdogan is a sharp political operator.
Very sharp. And of
He's
course,
using
he got
that
another
power.
mandate, so he's going to be in there for a while.
Yep.
Well, this Nordic alliance is important because if Sweden can depend upon the other Nordic nations, like Norway, perhaps Denmark, I'm not really sure all of the ones who have gone into it yet, Russia is right on their borders. Right there. And there are Russian-held regions that go within Lithuania, I think. And
Yeah, the little enclave there.
yes, which is similar to
Next to Lithuania, Latvia.
similar to
Yeah.
Donbass. If Belarus gets involved, and we keep seeing that it will, then it's all out.
Yeah, that's the wild card. I'd made a note to bring that in.
Yeah, well, I brought it in for you.
There you go.
There you go.
What will Lukashenko do in Belarus now that he has taken delivery of tactical nuclear weapons from Russia?
Exactly. And of course, the Russian newspaper sources are saying, no, the West is making a whole big deal about the possibility of nuclear war and nuclear winter, and they're quoting us as saying that. Who's telling the truth?
Yeah.
Good luck finding the truth
That's
in
the
here.
question. That's the question.
You cannot simply believe Western sources.
No, you can't. We don't go so far as to say that you can't, that everything that comes out in the corporate media is a lie.
No, but you have
But
to use
you have
a
to
little
use
filter.
discernment.
Yeah.
And it is demonstrably true that the Western press, the corporate media, has been lying about the war in Ukraine since the beginning. Because just over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about this on 5 and 10, the media narrative about Ukraine has been changing to, well, as mentioned, first of all, we're not seeing many stories about the wonderful successes of the Ukrainian counteroffensive because they're not having any. They may be gaining small chunks of territory here and there, but it's like, okay, 20 or 30 square miles. But when you look at the map published by the Institute for the Study of War, which is a neocon think tank in Washington, D.C., you're not seeing that area controlled by Russia shrinking to any great degree. The Ukrainians are throwing men in, and frankly, I hate to keep using the phrase, but I think it's accurate, meat grinder, for very little gain. In fact, a story from Asia Times this past week, written by David Goldman, who used to publish a weekly column under the pen name Spengler, which is a reference to a German philosopher about a century ago named Oswald Spengler, who had written in the wake of World War I that Western civilization was already in decline. And anyway, David Goldman came out and admitted that, that was me, and so now he writes under his own name. He quoted European and American military observers as saying that, look, when you've got the kind of resources that Ukraine can throw at this, a few dozen tanks and a couple of battalions, whatever it is, you have to mass your forces at a single point in the line so that you achieve superiority in numbers at that point and punch through, like the Germans did at the Battle of the Bulge. But they're not doing that. They've dispersed their forces and they're hitting 5 different places on the line at once, and they're going pell-mell. In fact, one guy likened it to the charge of the Light Brigade.
Which took place in Crimea.
In Crimea. And against Russians. It was a case in 1854 during that war when confused orders led to a light cavalry unit of the British military charging right into massed cannon fire, and they were absolutely obliterated.
They were shredded.
Yeah, like a third of the men made it back to their lines. And that's what's happening with the Ukrainians, sadly, because they're hitting, in one case, reportedly, the Ukrainians a tank unit charged into a minefield without clearing the mines first.
Oh.
This was on the night of June 8th. 38 tanks were lost, including some of those new Leopard 2s that they just received from Germany and Poland.
Oh, my goodness.
And they don't have air superiority, which means when the tanks are going there, Russian helicopters can stand off at a distance of up to 6 miles and hit them with anti-tank missiles.
That's the other part of this. From what you and I have been talking about, and I think the sources that you've been reading, it's theorized by some that the West did this to poke the bear, to poke Russia, to try to weaken it. The fact is, it appears that the West is weakening because we're sending all of our materiel
Right.
which is very expensive to replace.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending it to Ukraine. And as you say, the German Leopard tanks are being obliterated.
Right.
Our fighters, the F-16s, are going to go in, and they're going to be taken down.
Right. And the M1 Abrams, when they finally get there, which from what I've read are so difficult to operate, there's going to be a real long learning curve. I'm not sure that they're going to get there in time, but
the money guys.
Yes.
The military-industrial complex guys, they're looking at this and going, hey, we're going to make a bunch of money over the next few years because we're going to have to replace all of these tanks and planes.
Yeah, that was that was part of a story that came out this past week. James O'Keefe, who founded Project Veritas and then got kicked out by his board of directors after he went after Pfizer.
Yeah.
And that's not a coincidence. He caught a recruiter for BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager. They've got something like $10 trillion in assets under management right now. And this recruiter was saying, we basically run the world. We run the world because we can buy politicians. You want a U.S. senator? $10,000 will buy you a U.S. senator. And then about Ukraine, this recruiter is on video as saying, Ukraine, it's great for business. The Russians blow up grain silos. The price of wheat goes up. We make money. It's great. I tell you, that guy and the people who think that way have, well, they've got souls, but they're just, they're lost, sadly.
Well, it is
unless they
tragic
change
because
their
they're
ways.
part of that, why do the nations imagine a vain thing?
Yeah.
They are imagining a vain thing because they look at the rest of the world as nothing but numbers.
Yep.
Okay, we lost this number here. This number here, they're victorious. This group is buying from us. This group is making money for us. It's like this massive chessboard with no blood involved.
Or like
They're just numbers.
Like an MMORPG. We're just playing a game.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah, we're just none of this is real. All that matters is what goes into my bank account at the end of the quarter.
That's one of the tragedies, as the Bible says, in the last days, the love of many will wax cold.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of folks in this world, very powerful individuals, who think nothing of your death.
And there was just a meeting here recently. This just reported yesterday as we're recording this. BlackRock and J.P. Morgan backing Ukraine's first development fund. Australian businessman Andrew Forrest makes first $500 million commitment to the new structure. BlackRock and J.P. Morgan have joined forces to advise Ukraine on its first development fund.
I see a story like that at Sputnik News. BlackRock doesn't want Ukraine conflict to end. They're looking forward to the reconstruction.
Right, because there's money to be made.
Well, that sounds like carpetbaggers.
It does. Yes.
Yes, after the Civil War here in the United States.
CNN's money column reporting that, my CNN app won't even open on my iPad. Yeah.
Well, I'm just using Feedly.
Anyway, Ukraine needs investors to rebuild its war-torn economy. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has enlisted BlackRock and J.P. Morgan to advise on the Ukraine Development Fund. This reminds me of the film Syriana.
Oh, yes. You must see it.
Yes. George
It's got
Clooney.
very disturbing scenes, but you really need to see it.
The black actor, Jeffrey, who was in
I'd have to
Westworld.
Look it up. Yeah.
Anyway.
Very good actor. Fine actor.
Right. It's more about the oil business than anything else and what was going on in the Middle East. But
But it gives you an idea of what goes on behind the scenes. And spiritually speaking.
And there's a key scene between Tim Blake Nelson and that black character
he was in there.
who was playing a representative for an oil company, talking about corruption. Corruption keeps us safe and warm at night.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the worldview of these guys like.
Didn't Clooney help to produce that?
I think he did. He played a CIA operative. It was based on a book by Bob Baer, former CIA operative.
I should read that book. Yeah, it's one of those must-see films. Again, It's got some disturbing scenes, so wouldn't recommend it for your kids.
No.
But the idea that, spiritually speaking, the world is in turmoil, setting up the chaos leading to a restructure, a new world order, order out of chaos. This is playing out, and you and I have talked about this on Unraveling Revelation and here on P.I.D. Radio a number of times, the fact that Inanna is building up not just the war chest, because she wants the entire world to be at war, but she also wants to set up her own religion, which is based on a fluid gender cycle that gets people, frankly, doing things that are reprehensible and make no sense whatsoever. But they buy into this new religion, and I think that's where we're going with this. But on the flip side, she's working with another entity that is known by some cultures as Nabu.
He was known to the Greeks and Romans as Hermes or Mercury, the god of commerce, the god of...
That's where you get mercantile and merchandise.
But he was also the patron deity of thieves, which may or may not be coincidental.
Well, you know.
But going back to his origins in Mesopotamia, he was the god of scribes. Scribes, those who could write, which was a small minority of the people in ancient Babylon. And
writing words, that was mystical, magical. Right. If you could put down the spoken word, that was a big deal, because spoken word is part of our heritage as imagers of the Creator.
Right.
And it's been twisted.
So you have to write down the words of power so they could be spoken again and again and again.
And keep track of the numbers.
They keep track of the numbers. They kept the ledgers, the accounts, what was owed at the temple. Contracts like wills and deeds of sale and so forth, where you had to go to one of this guild for which Nabu was the patron deity, and have them draw it up for you, because if you were a typical person in ancient Babylonia, you didn't know how to read or write. You had to trust them to do it for you. So you'd
also have them write curses.
Yes. So in our world today, if it's not lawyers and bankers and educators who are pushing this new religion, running the world, I don't know who is. Boy, so I think you're absolutely right. There are multiple players, and we're just discerning the just a very dim outlines of what's going on in the spirit realm. But that's how we see it. And at some point, this entity called Shemayaza or Abaddon, Apollyon, will come out.
Saturn.
Kronos, Saturn, Dagon, Molech. Will come out, and he thinks he's going to rule the world. Of course, Satan, according to Jesus, is the god of this world, or the prince of this world. Jesus said that Satan had a kingdom. So, I think they're fighting with each other while they're trying to take down humanity and reclaim the planet from the children of Adam and Eve. But once they do, they're going to be fighting with each other for control, to be the one who sits on that throne.
Well, that's coming up soon. I think they're starting to jostle for position now, sort of climbing over each other.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time?
Well, we got to take a break here. And,
and AI. Can we talk about that when we come back?
AI, and yes, how that might factor into a United Nations-backed digital ID.
Ooh.
Don't go anywhere. P.I.D. Radio continues. We've recorded a lot of video over the last 8 years, and we're truly thankful that so many of you have been blessed by our teachings, presentations, our travel augmentaries of our tours through Israel. But sending videos to other parts of the world can get expensive, so we've now made all of our video content available on demand. Stream our video in full HD with instant access at gilberthouse.org/video. And during the months of May and June, you can save 20% with promo code VIDEO20 at checkout. That's VIDEO20. Video on demand for as little as $3 for 7 days access, and 20% off with promo code VIDEO20. But if you prefer DVDs, that promo code works for you too. Log on to gilberthouse.org/store, use VIDEO20 at checkout, and save 20% on all DVDs. 20% off all streaming video and DVDs with promo code VIDEO20 at gilberthouse.org. Welcome back to P.I.D. Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and our podcast today is fueled by Kevlar Joe Coffee. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, yeah.
I want to remind you, Build Barn Better project is it's underway. July 19th of this coming up very quickly, and we're going to have the floor done. After that, the electrics will be done, insulation, new windows, some repair on the outside where there are a few holes in the siding. But hey, we're getting there. So we're thinking maybe mid to end of September will be in the barn doing all of this stuff. And in fact, we're even, crazy me, because I don't like to put on makeup. I really prefer not to. My skin is happier. My eyes are happier.
Sweetheart, I think you look lovely without right now.
It's that coffee. You're just... Thanks, Kevlar.
The world looks brighter.
Doesn't it, though? I know. But we want to just tell you that we are thinking about the idea of putting just a little camera and watching us as we sit here, so you can, if you are one of those people that likes a visual while you're listening to a quote-unquote podcast, many of those are actually visual now, you may get that. Who knows? You may be sorry, too.
Well, it's more of a burden for you.
They don't look like they're awake. They scare me. Are they in jammies? Yes.
Well, it's Saturday.
Saturday morning. Good grief.
But yes, as Sharon said, we do have dates from the contractors now. We're on their calendars. So July 19th, the flooring contractor comes out. About a week after that, our contractor starts working on the walls, putting in the windows, running the electric, and then once we know that is underway, then we'll get the insulation contractor out here and then the HVAC, and then we can start, enlisting help to move these desks out there.
I know it's going to be really, really fun. Yeah. We've got, I think, probably a couple of friends who
burly.
Lift weights. But we can't do this without you. We would not be able to do this without you.
That's
Many
right.
of you have stepped up and you have supported us in ways that just are shocking to us. We have just been on our knees thanking the Lord over and over for your generosity. If he leads you, if our Lord leads you and says, give $1 or $2 to the Gilberts for this project, you can do so at gilberthouse.org/donate. Also, we want to remind you that on the app, there is a conversation area where you can go in and put in prayer requests, and there's an announcements area where we're going to keep you informed about what's going on with the barn.
Yeah, it's top menu bar there. You'll see a little icon that looks like two little talk balloons. That's the messaging section, and if you go in there, you'll see
it's lively.
Conversations.
People are in there. They're really, really sharing and praying for one another. I love it.
Yeah, it is really wonderful, especially, and I'm really, really happy that the prayer requests conversation is the one that's most active. We've got 70 members in there as of now. Let's hope that's not necessarily the number of completion there, but the total set. We would love to have all of you using the app.
I'd love to see that 7,000 or whatever. Let's get everybody in here, because for years we've been doing Gilbert House Fellowship and P.I.D. Radio, and so we've had this virtual community, but we want you to share with one another and uplift one another.
And the nice thing about this is that it's all self-contained within the app, so it doesn't go out on the internet and thus does not go through an algorithm that might pick up on some keywords and decide that you are somebody who needs to have that you need a timeout in whatever social media forum.
It's great because Subsplash is the company that makes our app. They're a Christian company. They host lots and lots of big names you're familiar with, including Ellie Marzulli and Skywatch TV, Prophecy Watchers, and Gilbert House Fellowship.
Yeah, so take advantage of that. That's a wonderful tool that they've included there. So download the app. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/app or pidradio.com/app.
Yeah.
Either way.
P.I.D. Radio. Boy, we've been doing this for a long time.
We have.
March
and,
of 2005.
I found a bunch of files, audio files from 2006.
The vault. You opened the vault.
I did, and a few moths came out.
A couple of bats.
The security guard there watching Jack Benny's deposits.
Did we win the war?
World War II. No, Revolution.
Jack Benny. Oh,
so a bunch of 2006 episodes will be going up soon, which means when you get into the classic PID Radio Classic tab, you'll have to scroll way down because there's already a bunch of 2009, 2008, 2009 stuff up there. But some of the early stuff from 2006, which was not uploaded previously. So anyway, we'll start working on that this weekend. So anyway.
AI, artificial intelligence algorithm. I mean, they're all over the place now. Artists, graphic artists have been using these. Film editors have been using the new algorithms to punch up their products. I've been looking at it because you and I both subscribe to Adobe, and I do a lot of graphics with Adobe Photoshop and InDesign and do all sorts of stuff with it. Well, I love it.
I use the simple one, the one called Adobe Express. It just lets me, replace this image. There. Done.
Done. No, I get that. I've got it on my mobile devices too, but I like the big things. So they've also got a subscription for an AI version of things. So I'm going to take a look at that, but they're all over the place. And it's getting to where some of these are so good that you cannot necessarily discern, is this true or false?
Yeah.
Video of Trump being arrested and put into a car, that came out long before he actually went to court.
Yeah, there was some controversy here a few weeks ago when the Ron DeSantis presidential campaign used AI to create images of Donald Trump hugging Anthony Fauci.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to see more and more of those things, dirty politics, but also dirty warfare.
Yeah.
We may see films of the United States being involved in things, Russia being involved in things, Germany, the UK, all sorts of videos that look real. And how can we tell what's real? Well, this is just the beginning of this. But a story came out today that I found really, really interesting because it says, here's the headline: AI isn't magic. It's being used to spy on you. Oh, yeah. Well, the story goes that according to experts that have been taking a look at the algorithms and what's really going on behind them, that it's not, at this point, they're claiming it's not necessarily this really finely tuned AI that can put together whatever you ask it to in text. There are human beings behind it that are helping to feed the information.
Well, yeah.
Well, that just goes to, these are programmers, but also it's you and I. We are helping to program it because we are inputting all of this information to help it grow and learn. While we're doing that, while we're feeding it, it's actually scraping all of this data from us. And this could be used against you at some point.
Sure.
Well, let's say you're doing a film. Let's say the film is about human trafficking. And so you ask it to give you a video or a still image of something that represents that, not wanting to put an actual child in because you don't want to, frankly, reveal the identity of a child. And then suddenly the AI reports you as being a pornographer.
Yeah.
Next time you apply for a loan, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Can't give you that because you're a pornographer. And then someone knocks at your door. These are things that could happen. I research tons of things that are really wacky because I write fiction. And if somebody wanted to take a look at those things, dissecting a human being.
Taking out of context.
Taking out of context.
Right.
Well, if they looked at my occupation, they go, oh, yeah, she writes fiction and she writes about horror stuff and supernatural stuff. So the things she researches are pretty wide and diverse, and some are really disturbing. I don't like researching that stuff, but I have to, especially when it comes to looking into the supernatural. I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people around the world that write fiction or they do make films, movies. But maybe you're just playing with an AI. And so you put in something about, I don't know, a conspiracy theory that you would like to demonstrate, you would like to illustrate. And now you're labeled as a conspiracy theorist. Well, you may be, you may not be. It could be you're writing an article trying to debunk conspiracy theory. In other words, all of your data is there, and it can be taken out of context and used against you.
And since the big search engines now, Google, Microsoft's Bing, are using AI to enhance their search results, they are constantly scraping information from users to feed the algorithms, to feed those neural networks that generate the search results.
Oh, yes. And here's another really disturbing thing. The AI is learning about how you write. So the AI can write for you. Let me finish your email. Let me tweak it. Let me make it a little more, let me punch up your resume. If the emails are just put, because I've seen claims that now we'll just let the algorithm, let ChatGPT or whatever, write your emails for you because you're busy. There's a book about that. It's called Avogadro Corp. And that's exactly how it starts.
Yeah, that was William Hertling. Yeah, William Hertling.
Yeah, fine writer, really good. He's got I think there are 3 books in that series.
Right.
And
that's more than 10 years old now, so he really saw what was coming more than a decade ago.
And he worked for a very big name organization that did that very thing, that was writing that very thing.
Right.
Avogadro is just a really large number.
Oh, like Google.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Say no more.
So you might want to take a look at that. I'm sure it's available on Kindle. I think that's how I read it.
Right. Yeah, Hertling is a good writer. The plot is really good.
Yeah.
But he's writing it from the perspective of somebody with the experience of one who is in that industry and saw, this was published in 2011, so a dozen years ago, he saw where this was going.
And this AI was seeding itself all over the world just in case it was taken out.
Yeah. Decentralized, so you can never... And then it was sending out very realistic emails, purchase orders on behalf of its parent company quietly, so it didn't attract the attention of the corporate accountants, to hire little armed robots to guard these new servers it was setting up on barges offshore.
Yes, exactly. So
powered
they were
by
in
tidal
no
action.
particular country.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
It's a very, very good look at where we are now and where we are still going.
And speaking of artificial intelligence and its omnipresence, connect that to this other story that I teased before the break. The United Nations wants to set up a digital ID, a universal digital ID, or, global, because obviously we wouldn't go out in the universe. Global digital ID tied to the bank accounts of users.
Yes.
Now, it would likely also be connected to a China-like social credit score. So these AIs that are scraping data from the web to learn everything about you, rather than the stuff that you choose to release when you apply for a credit card or an auto loan or something. It's like, well, the AI has been on the web and saw that you made some statements that are considered pretty racist, and we don't do business with racists. So, no, you've been... What?
I didn't say anything like that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. AIs give false information.
That's the other aspect of this. As there is a case now that was filed in a New York court where, what was the story here? A guy was notified by somebody, and this information never went public, but he was notified by somebody that, hey, I was doing, I think it was a journalist who was looking into somebody, and said that according to the results I got from ChatGPT, you were accused of stealing like $5 million from a nonprofit gun rights owner organization. Yeah, except that was totally untrue. So ChatGPT, or OpenAI, which develops ChatGPT, has been sued by this guy. Now, it's not clear that the case will go anywhere because the guy who got the results from ChatGPT never published it. But
right. So technically,
this is not
no
the first,
harm was done, but still.
Technically, right. But how did it cite, come up with this information? In another case, a lawyer in New York was censured because he filed a brief in court citing all of these legal cases, and it turned out that the cases, which he used ChatGPT to find, it had just made them up. They were realistic sounding, Jackson versus Ajax Airlines, so blah, 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 blah. None of those cases existed. And in another case, a very well-known law professor at Georgetown, Jonathan Turley, whose column I read because he's a really good legal analyst who comments a lot on some of this legal lawfare that's being waged against Donald Trump. He's not a conservative, but he's honest.
Yeah.
Turley, according to another lawyer friend of his out on the West Coast, Eugene Volokh, was cited by ChatGPT in search results as having been accused of sexual harassment of a fellow passenger on an Alaskan cruise years ago when he worked at some other school. Except the problem is Turley never went on an Alaskan cruise and he never worked at this other school, but ChatGPT cited a non-existent Washington Post news article.
Oh my goodness.
As its source for this information. So what's really bizarre is that programmers of AI are aware of this. And I forget the term they're using, hallucinating or dreaming or something. but they're aware of this tendency of the black boxes, the neural networks, to just concoct these things out of whole cloth. And they sound realistic. And unless you go in knowing that it's possible that this stuff might be made up.
Boy, it's almost like the father of lies is in there.
I wonder, because, yes, exactly. I've only played with ChatGPT a couple of times. It's like, okay, this is interesting, but, and I'm not superstitious or afraid of it or anything. It's just like, I don't want to depend on this. It's an interesting tool. Mm-hmm. I can see how people wanting to shortcut actual research could be drawn in to use this. Kids trying to do homework is like, okay, well, I'll just, have ChatGPT ready. But I did a search for me, who is Derek P. Gilbert? Mm-hmm. And it came back with results claiming that I was an ordained Baptist minister. I was like, where did it get that idea?
Ooh, Pastor Derek.
Yeah, and I'm not ordained, not trained.
Didn't it say I had a doctorate from some school in Florida?
Yeah, something like that. Right. When we searched for you, it gave you a PhD.
I've never studied in Florida.
Right.
And I don't have a PhD yet.
You'd begun the PhD program at IU, but right. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it just, got some bad information somewhere. It just now dawned on me. Maybe it was just making stuff up.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Well, here's the thing. Father of Lies is going to retcon history.
Mm-hmm. Already doing it.
You and I have been watching a series on Apple TV called Silo. Mm-hmm. And in it, you have a civilization that is based on lies. Their entire history has been wiped so that they only have what the founders tell them is truth. Mm-hmm. And everything they've been told we're learning is a lie.
Right.
Well, I think we're moving into a future where our history, as you and I know it, is going to be altered radically. And a very young generation growing up will know that's all they'll know.
Right. Oh, I agree. That's behind the whole this sort of year zero mentality.
Yes.
Which is very Marxist.
And we are heading there, and it's led by the so-called green agenda, which is leading us toward the year 2035.
Right.
And or 2050. And I've even seen 2025, which is just 2 years away. Mm-hmm. We're heading there very, very, very quickly. And I'll remind you need to read Tom Horn's book, Wormwood.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Wormwood, the Wormwood Prophecy, also Zeitgeist 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both really, really good.
Yeah, but this is just the idea of smashing statues of old, dead white guys is just part of this. The idea that we need to retcon history and like the 1619 Project.
Right. Oh, yes. My recommendation to you is get printed books.
Yeah.
Because the digital versions are going to start getting changed. And by that I mean not the scans, not the PDF scans, because that's an actual scan of a page. Mm-hmm. I love Google Books for that reason. I have lots and lots of versions of Google Books and old books that have been scanned, from the 18th century, 19th century, and early 20th, because we're losing access to that stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you can do it that way, great. But if not, if you can get a printed copy, go to used bookstores and just buy old books.
Yeah, because
especially Bibles.
Yes, because when history cannot be changed or rewritten or just eliminated altogether, problematic texts written in the 19th century where their beliefs were a little different, where societal norms were different, definitions of men and women, relations between the races were different. Certain terms were considered acceptable in polite society then that are not now. So authors like Mark Twain are being flat out canceled. But now we're seeing it just in the last 6 months or so. Yeah, Dr. Seuss, Roald Dahl. Mm-hmm. Just this past week.
Beatrix Potter,
but P.G. Wodehouse, the Wooster and Jeeves. That? Yeah. Oh. So they're rewriting
comedy.
Rewriting those books to take out the problematic texts because we can't say those things anymore. We can't. Yeah.
But the problem is some of those books, and Wodehouse was really good at this. He helped shine a light on some of the societal behaviors.
Right.
By sort of almost lampooning it in a way, because those characters were somewhat caricatures.
Yeah.
And we need that because it helps to remind us of how far we've come. A little bit of a left turn. There's another aspect to what's in the news right now that frankly is underreported. and that is just the way Christians are being treated in other parts of the world. Many of us who are here in the United States, because most of our listeners are English-speaking, and they're mostly in the United States, but all of you around the world who are listening, you may be aware of this, but frankly, it doesn't get into most of the Western press. In countries like Nigeria, Christians are being mowed down. Their churches are being burnt. They're being kidnapped. In Nigeria alone, in the month of May, 700 Christians were killed. 700 Christians. This is according to the Anambra-based International Society for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law. They released a report on just the month of May, 700 Christians, and they also allege that 1,100 Christians were killed by jihadis between April 12 and June 12. That's 17 deaths every day.
And when it is reported in the corporate media here, it's always portrayed as, well, it's the herdsmen versus the townsmen or the farmers.
Yeah, farmers and the cowmen. Right. It's Muslim against Christian because the Fulani herdsmen are all Muslims.
Right. This has been ongoing for a long time. Raymond Ibrahim, who's been a guest on A View from the Bunker multiple times.
Great author.
Right. Great author, great researcher. His specialty is Islamic history and specifically Islam's war against the West, which goes back 1,400 years. In the book Bad Moon Rising, I cited some of Raymond's research, also cited research from a study that was published in 2004 by the Ohio State University. And it's startling, but the study found that at least 1 million European Christians were enslaved by Muslims from North Africa between 1530 and 1780. So that 250-year period between King Henry VIII and King George III, 1 million European Christians sold into slavery. In fact, there are some researchers who believe that the whole Viking phenomenon from the Nordic countries began because they had made contact with the Islamic world, the Ottoman Empire, well, even before the Ottomans took over, but by going down the Volga River, the founders of the kingdom of the Kievan Rus, which was the sort of the seed that blossomed into the Russian Empire around the year 1000, were Varangians. Those were basically Swedish Vikings who'd come down the Volga and set up their first kingdom based at Kiev. They found that there was a market for slaves around the Mediterranean world, which was controlled by Islam back in the day. And that, according to some scholars, is what really prompted the Vikings to do what they did. Hey, let's go raid the coast of France. Let's go raid the coast of England and Ireland and Scotland. And take
young, fit men, but also take beautiful women. And they would some of these women would be incorporated into the harems.
Yeah. That was, well, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit trail. It's a part of history that is obscured, and this is what rewriting history can do. If we understand the history of the relations between Islam and the West, and I highly recommend Raymond's book, well, actually his two most recent books, Sword and Scimitar and, Defenders of the West.
Oh, yes, that's a really good one.
Where he looks at certain men, especially those who've been demonized in the century since by woke scholars.
Like Richard the Lionheart,
but Vlad Tepes.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Vlad Dracul. They were Christian defenders of Europe against the encroachment of Islam. Jan Sobieski, the King of Poland, who saved Vienna in 1683.
Yes, his flying hussars.
There were colonies in the United States by that point already, and still Islam was about to take Central Europe. So anyway, the point is, it continues to this day, and this rewriting of history, we forget all of that, which means we can't properly analyze it. Yeah, we can't learn from it, so we can't really figure out why we are where we are today.
Well, I think it's really important to understand that dynamic of the Christian world versus the Islamic world, because this is, first of all, it's a spiritual thing.
Yes.
But second of all, it's what led us up to World War I. And the Islamic world failed. The Ottoman Empire fell.
Right.
They'd been sort of, falling during the late 19th century, and they officially fell in 1918 or so.
1922 is the final dissolution.
Yeah, exactly. But they essentially lost the war, and you're right, 1922. But in 1922, thereabouts, along came Ataturk, who took over and westernized Turkey, with Turkey being the center of the Ottoman Empire. And now it's led up to the modern day version of Ataturk, which is Erdogan. He is invoking that spirit. He wants to turn the clock back and revive the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. So it's going to be the West against the Ottomans again.
He's even set a target date, and I should remember this, but sadly I don't. Because I've talked about it maybe 6 weeks ago, but there's a target date that he's pointed to, which is the anniversary of, it might be 2053, which would be the 600th. I think that's it. It's the 600th anniversary of the fall of Constantinople.
Oh, do you know that might be?
Yeah, 1453 is when Constantinople fell and became Istanbul, which was just the Turkic way of pronouncing Constantinople. But yeah, Erdogan was pointing to 2053 as some goal of his to make Turkey a major player on the...
Make Turkey great again.
Yeah, it's a Turkey, by the way. Now
yes,
they're insisting on Turkey as the correct pronunciation. We don't understand what's going on in all aspects of life unless we have a supernatural worldview. And the naturalistic bias of political commentators and the corporate media miss it, I think, because they're blind, and also because they're being whispered to, perhaps even without their understanding what's going on, to turn our eyes away from the spiritual forces at work behind the scenes. So when a terror event takes place, they always turn to, well, there was some sort of psychological problem involved here. This person needed psychological help or counseling, or he was online and was radicalized, as though that's just something that happens if you go to the wrong websites too often. You get radicalized. No, there's a spiritual component. It's spiritual. It's not this person. It's not that this person should have been blocked from seeing those sites. It's not that we need social media sites to censor information on the internet. It's a spiritual war that's taking place, and these are the ramifications, the consequences in the natural world.
Absolutely. And by the way, October of this year marks 100 years. It's the 100th anniversary of the Republic of Turkey.
Okay.
October 29th, I think.
So we'll look forward to seeing what
well, last year he signaled. He said, beginning with that 100-year anniversary, he's declaring the century of Turkey.
Well, I'm sure the President Xi has something to say about that.
Oh, yeah.
They see this as China's century.
So we've got spirits all over the world behind the scenes who are
jockeying for position,
climbing up over one another to get to the top of that ladder. And whoever's sitting in that seat when Jesus returns, we'll see. We'll see who it is. Bottom line is Satan is the one who actually is the big king right now. Right.
These other spirits may be fighting one another for top spot, but he is still, as just temporarily anyway, the prince of this world.
Very temporarily. Praise the Lord God Almighty. Well, then we
blathered for another hour.
We have, but you know what? We're going to be in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
And we would love for you to join us there.
We will be there from...
last weekend in July.
Yeah. July 28th and 29th. Boy, aspirated a little Kevlar Joe's there.
Ooh, yum.
July 28th and 29th. And we'll tell you about our just the other thing going on that week, where we will be at Morningside on the 25th of that week. But
yes.
Morningside, we'll tell you about that in a second. GoThereForConference.com is where you find out more about this. Dr. Michael Spalding and Kathy Spalding, Mike and Kathy putting this together with the help of Pastor Neil Peterson at his church, the Harvest Revival Center in Brookville, Ohio. Wonderful lineup of speakers. L.A. Marzulli, Pastor Casper McLeod, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Coach Dave Daubenmeyer, and boy, some real spiritual warriors. Dr. Greg Reed, David Hevner, Tom Dunn, Vicki Joy Anderson, our good friend Kenny C.
Oh, we love Kenny C. It's really quite a lineup. And I'll tell you what, because we've had so many years now of virtual conferences, in-person conferences are becoming more and more rare. Not only is this one place you can meet lots of great folks who are part of this milieu, but you can listen to speakers that, frankly, don't always go to these conferences anymore. So plan to go. It's not a big deal to get in. It's a relatively modest entry fee, as I remember.
Yeah, it's $59.
Yeah, that's low.
Right. And that helps offset the cost of the church having to open up for the weekend and set up all of the facilities.
AV equipment and all of that.
But it's a wonderful setting. And yes, if you cannot make it to Dayton, the Dayton area, it will be live streamed.
Yeah.
So you can sign up for that at the website as well. GoThereForConference.com. And you can find out everything about this at our web. Well, actually at our app. You can find it in the
Yes, everything's at the app.
the right-hand column at gilberthouse.org. But it's right there in the app. So you even got a little map there.
Look, you just live there in the app.
Tap on the app and it brings up the big map, and you can get directions and getting there from wherever you are and that sort of thing. So anyway, it's really cool.
And as you said earlier, we're going to be at the Jim Baker Show down in Blue Eye, Missouri, at Morningside on Grace Street. And we're not the only ones who are going to be there.
Oh, our good friend Aaron Lipkin will be joining us. His first appearance on the Jim Baker Show.
I know. We're just going to have to tease him.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, he will dominate the conversation, as well he should, because Aaron Lipkin has been involved with archaeologists in the land of Israel for years.
Yes, especially our friend Scott Stripling, Dr. Scott Stripling, who's leading the dig at Shiloh, but he also is the one who found, thanks to Aaron's help, the lead curse tablet at the site of Joshua's altar.
I know. Aaron telling the story about how he happened to find a way to get in there and remove all of that fill dirt.
Yeah.
I mean, the dirt.
The dump pile. Yeah.
The dump pile. Exactly. That's how they found it. Wet sifting of all of that material.
That's a technique that has been used elsewhere, but Scott really has He's developed it and refined it. And they were able to get that dump pile that was created by the archaeologist Adam Zertal back in the 1980s when he found the location. They did a really good job of finding artifacts there. But when you're wet sifting, it's much easier to tell the difference between a rock and something important.
And they found something important.
Yes. So Aaron Lipkin will be on the Jim Baker Show that day, Tuesday, July 25th. If you're in the Ozarks, you can join us because the session is free and open to the public. Get there a little early, about 10:30 in the morning or so, taping. They usually target 11 a.m., but usually it's closer to noon when we start. But there's a little cafeteria there that makes a great burger and some other great stuff. So you can get something to eat for lunch there and then watch the show. Come up and say hello afterwards. We'll probably record 2 programs. So probably until about 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Again, you can get directions at our app in the calendar section and or at the website, gilberthouse.org. Look in the right-hand column for upcoming events.
The little calendar has an actual map.
I know.
I love that.
Again, Subsplash, the company that develops the app, has just done an amazing job. There's so many powerful tools in it that we're just
now discovering.
It's like, I wonder what this does. Oh, hey, that's cool. Let's add that. So that's what we got coming up in the next 30 days. So we're looking forward to that last week of July because that'll be a lot of fun. Seeing Aaron and then going to Ohio and seeing all of our friends there. And
boy, we've done more words per minute today than I think we ever have. And we can thank Kevlar Joe Coffee.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sending that to us.
And this was the medium roast. Wait till we get the dark roast.
There's
tomorrow morning's Bible study ought to be really, really good. Yeah. So, that's coming up tomorrow. Our Gilbert House Fellowship. Let me check the calendar to see what's on the 2 Samuel 14 and 15.
Oh, good stuff.
Yep. So there's that, and then tomorrow evening, a View from the Bunker interview with Dr. Doug Hamp. And his co-author on a brand new novel called The Regenesis Code, his co-author Mornay Tunison, a South African filmmaker. It is really, really good. I'm about a third of the way through the novel. It's a novel of the end times, the rise of Antichrist, and the use of genetic technology.
Oh, I know. If you and I had the time, it's the sort of book that you can just devour in a day. But sadly, we have other things that require our participation.
Yeah. I just agreed to appear on an upcoming series of shows at Skywatch TV talking about the Apocrypha. So I've got to do some reading on the book of First Enoch. So
we've got the stuff.
We do. We do.
Here.
So I will be doing some reading on that, and that actually is good motivation because it will go into our book in progress, The Gates of Hell.
Yeah, indeed. We've got about 40,000 words on it so far.
Yeah.
And I've got about 50,000 words on book 9 of the Red Wing Saga.
Awesome.
And people have asked when that's going to come out. Probably Christmas. I'm also hoping to complete Angel Falls, which is the first John Thundercloud mystery. So lots of things happening here in Gilbert House.
Yes. Well, keep up with us at gilberthouse.org. Our links to our Twitter feeds are there and all sorts of other stuff. But of course, the best way to keep up with us is through the app.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
P.I.D. Radio is an outreach of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, PIDradio.com, Twitter @PID Radio, or by downloading our free app, PIDradio.com/app or gilberthouse.org/app. Join us each week for our Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship.